Now, there's a lot of drawbacks to this. Too rednecky. See where I'm going? It's almost
Now, what that means, I don't know.
We'll start in 2 minutes, folks.
2 minutes?
Ready, hi. Come on up front.
Let's let you get.
Good, come on. Yeah, but then I got to go on. Hi, Liz.
Like 2.5 hours.
Where is everybody? Well, yeah, he's from our Tea Party, Little West. You know, I'm going to start a new organization. The Goshen Homeowners, Village Homeowners Association. VHA. In other words. VHA. Within 3 blocks. I have all new neighbors. I have a lot of new neighbors. So.
Right behind you, man. Nice to meet you. Regulator.
He didn't have to go through the machine today either. Right away,
To the flag to the
All right, folks, we're going to get started. Everyone can rise. I'm going to ask Deputy Mayor Char to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, good evening, everyone. Nice to see everyone tonight. Welcome to the Village Board meeting of April 11th, 2011. Tonight we have our public hearing on the 2011 to 2012 proposed budget. First, I would like to ask for a motion to modify the agenda to add communications number 5, a letter from MacDonald engineers. Do I have a first?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Because we don't want to make everyone have to wait till the end to do the budget hearing, we're going to do that right now. Prior to opening up the floor, I'm just going to comment on the budget briefly, and then anyone that has comments will be given their time to speak. I just ask, just for procedural purposes, make sure you state your name and your address, even though I think we all probably know each other in the room, just so we can get in the minutes and all that, in case someone comes in, you know. So, right now, if you don't have a budget, they're over by the door there. Now, a week ago, I came into office and it was important to get a preliminary budget out to the public. So we submitted what we had so far, and that's what you have in front of you today. This has been worked on in April a little bit. This budget right now calls for a 15% tax increase. That is not something that is acceptable to myself or to the rest of this board, and it's not something that we will be able to tolerate. That being said, on Monday it was important to put something out for the public so the public could see what the board was working with. And in the next few days we will continue to sharpen our pencils, so to speak, cut this down so we can make more gains. And I'm going to be relying on other board members, village staff, Commissioner of Finance Char, and our accountant Michael Veneri. But just to kind of show what we're working with, I just wanted to say 3 figures. Now, if you go at the end of the general fund's expenses, our retirement costs have gone up between the 2 lines, $177,575. Medical insurance has gone up $105,000. Workers' compensation is up $30,000. Those 3 line items account for an increase of over $300,000 in our expenses. And that's in, right now, proposal, our tax levy increase is $633,313. So almost half of the increase is due to those 3 lines. That being said, I believe that there are ways we can find cost-cutting measures in what we have. I don't want to say a number tonight because it'll merit further investigation. I don't want it to seem like we're rushing. It's going to take a lot of intense deliberations by the board. And additionally, I failed to mention before, we have a Citizens Budget Advisory Committee for the first time this year. Very preliminary stages, kind of done just to get the ball rolling. So next year, the process can be started earlier. The chairperson of that is Roy Brady. He couldn't be here tonight. He had a work conflict come up last minute, so he apologizes. But I do want to thank him and also the other members that were there this past Thursday. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, that was Bob Chafee, Joe Markowitz, and Hickok. Was there anyone else that I'm missing, Joe? Okay, so I want to thank everyone that was there that night. And I believe that they'll also be meeting again this coming Thursday. Is that accurate, Joe, Neil? This Thursday? Okay, potentially this Thursday. I know they all have each other's contact information, and that's open to anyone in the public as well. But I do want to thank them for continuing to work on that, because it really is a community process, and we're dealing with a lot of things that we wish we didn't have to deal with, different mandates that are unfunded and all that. But I think the more people that get involved and look at this, the more good ideas can come out, because we are smarter than we, is the thing. So before I open it up, just some general comments that I have. Obviously, when you look at this and you look at the number 15, we face financial challenges in the village of Goshen. And I have some ideas of things that I believe the village needs to do as we move forward, and hopefully these are in line with a lot of what the public might be thinking. So I'm going to go through those, and then when I finish those, we're going to open things up. The first thing that we're going to have to do in the village is move into an austerity mode. School districts, when a budget gets voted down, they move towards austerity, where it's middle spending except things. We're going to have to move into a mode where only essential purchases are made. So anything over $1,000 is going to have to get my approval as mayor. And that's not to say things are going to get nixed that are essential, but it's just so there's an accountability, because as chief budget officer, it's my responsibility to know what we're spending money on and how things are looking in the middle of the fiscal year and throughout the fiscal year. So that's going to be in place starting tomorrow, and I'll be meeting with department heads discussing that more. And I think that even though things are not looking as we would like them right now, even after we whittle that 15% down, hopefully next year we'll be able to get more control of this budget and be more productive thereafter. One of the things that you'll find in the budget is salaries are very high. I think that part of that can be a good thing, because it helps us retain skilled workers. We don't, in the past, workers have been trained in the village, given training, and then gone somewhere else, whether it's police or DPW. So I think that's also positive. But at the same time, as you can see by looking at the numbers, our salaries have increased dramatically over the past few years to a point where they're a large chunk of our budget. A lot of that is the result of union contract negotiations, which we can't control right now. They're contractual. But I will ask moving forward that our liaisons are cognizant and do some planning moving into those negotiations, talking to the department heads to find out if during those next rounds of negotiations we can come up with something that's more beneficial for the village as a whole while still giving our excellent employees everything they need. I think that we need to look into finding grant money to study the benefits of consolidation. I'm not in favor of consolidation. I've said that before in the past. I have yet to see one strong example of consolidation actually working in a community. I don't think it saves a lot of money. I think that it interrupts services, and I don't think it's been a good thing when it has been practiced. That being said, if there is free grant money available to explore things like that, I think that it's something we can look into just to find out if it would truly save money. I don't believe it will, but I know that we have a growing number of residents that want to find out. So I think that's something we can look into, just so we can say at that point, looks like it's not going to work. And if we find out it's going to save a substantial amount of money, then we'll have that conversation if it happens. I'm skeptical, but I think we can't put blinders on to anything. We need to look into new revenue streams. The sale of the property off the 17M where the stockpile currently is. We need to, analyze every budget line to see if we're getting the best rates on phone service, electric, and all those things. We need to use more electronic technology, green technology. Some communities have used different types of light bulbs or less paper products and save money. More aggressively search for grants, looking for grants, finding those things. And then lastly, just help support our local businesses by being leaders in buying local, supporting those businesses, and also making sure that Goshen appears open to business for outsiders to come in and build business here. So I'm sorry, I know I spoke for a little longer than I had it planned, but I think it's important for the public to know what our mindset is, because 15% is a scary number to look at. So I think it's important for you to see what at least my mentality is moving forward, and that we are working to get this number as low as possible for our residents. At that, I will open up the public hearing. I'll start with Susan.
Susan Bloom, 10 Hillcrest Avenue, Village of Goshen. Okay, first of all, I want to congratulate you,
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor and Mr. Smith. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And first I want to start off with, back in 1995, there was a shared program that was paid for between the village and town, so I had a copy made, so you could have that to review. I think maybe there was
What
a
type
slide.
of, or a report on it?
Right, that was completed by the town and village, and if you look in there, they give the recommendations,
Okay.
and also the fact that we could also look to the sheriff's department, maybe the town can, for the policing and sharing of policing services.
We can keep this copy?
Right, you can have it, I'll make that for you. And then also, I think, when we look to, which isn't in the budget, the sales tax revenue line, not in the budget, currently in the budget stuff. What I would suggest is that we being the host community, which I've done before, nobody's done it yet, so maybe you could do it. You're a registered Republican, right?
Me?
Yeah.
I'm a Goshenite.
But, there's a possibility of looking for being the host community, getting a bigger lump on that sales tax revenue. Other communities have tried it, but it's worth a shot,
Doesn't seem
okay?
like it.
All right.
Look into it.
Number 3, I'm looking for possible revenues, a possibility for a progressive tax to entice more businesses into the community.
What do you mean by that?
A progressive tax. You'd start off at 10% the first year, 20%, progress right up to the 10th year.
Okay, similar like pilots then?
Yeah, right.
Okay.
And then a lot of communities, what they've done, they've written into that contract that after you reach that 10th year, you can't just pull it out of here,
Okay.
for different reasons, for
Sure.
bankruptcy or whatnot. But a lot of communities are doing that also.
Chester does that very well, and they've had a lot of success.
Do they? Okay, so.
A lot of those are through the IDA, but the same type of programs you're mentioning.
Right. Now, when it comes time to do your negotiations, I think they have to learn the word of what compromise means, okay? Because it's happening all over the United States. We can no longer pay the benefits. You can't put it on the property tax owners anymore. We can't pay the retirement, or the benefits. It's crazy. It's insanity. So they're going to have to go for a larger portion coming out of their pay. We have to change the tax system, what happens on how you pay for government, which would be a great thing if we went federal across the board, a sales tax where everybody would pay, and we get rid of the stupid property tax and, change the whole tax structure. But these are some things that we can do. As far as the pay increases, I think they're extremely high. They're on the high end. They can maybe drop down another %. I mean, everybody out in the real world, they're lucky if they get a 2% increase. I mean, I'm not even going to get an increase in my Social Security for 2 years, and the increase that I'm going to get next year, I'm not going to get because our Medicare premiums are going up. So a lot of people who are seniors and elderly and disabled in this community are really stuck between a rock and a hard place, So I would hope that you would look towards that. And I don't know if I can stay here for the end of the meeting, so I'm just going to quick interject this to ask you to look into that code, the state code, to exempt seniors and disabled from any sewer increases.
Reassessment.
Okay, please look into that. We talked about shared services. One right off the bat that we could do would be the courts. In fact, that was the easiest one that they came through in there. Had all the courts done over there. That's, that would be a cost saving, but you can look in that and see.
Well, they're ready to try that out, so that'll be an interesting case study to look into to see if the village loses revenue there as a result, or if it's a benefit long term, so sure.
Now, also looking towards on the revenue side, take a look and have the property evaluated where the current highway department is and where the police department is. See what we could put that on the market for and what we could get for it, and where the current landfill is being removed. And I've already spoken to the DEC about it, where you could put a cover on the soil there. They said that would be a great place to put the highway department out there. And then take the money that you would get from the sale of that property and do that. And then with the police department, maybe build a police department also for that. Because even this place is falling apart. I mean, I just see big money pits everywhere I look. And, and if you want to keep up, I know it's something that we really can't do right now, but you have to look towards the future, too, and how we can save. And, like I say, consolidation also. you talked about looking at alternatives to energy. Solar and wind are excellent ways. There are municipal grants from the federal government. You can look into that, because you can forget about state grants and what's going on locally, because
We found that, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And we've looked into feasibility of solar at the sewer plant. Unfortunately, the cost of installing solar isn't at a point where it will pay out the dividends in the required time, but the rate of technology growth is increasing so rapidly, so hopefully a few years down the line, it'll be at a point where we can, wind isn't something we've explored, so I would agree with you. I think it's something that merits investigation.
And you guys need to follow up on the money that we applied for the stimulus money for that dam at the reservoir. Because when I contacted the state, even when I was out of office, I continued to talk to them. And they said that is a definite, that you could really get that money for that dam, because it's like, I guess it's categorized as, Marcia, what is it? Whatever, it's stage 3.
I don't know that,
It's a dangerous situation, and they said it would be, but they said as
well,
far
we've
as...
done work
Yeah.
on it, but it does
Right.
need the investment for the future.
Right, and it said also for the, you could forget the infrastructure, because he said, the gentleman at the state told me, that every municipality in New York and across the United States just lets their infrastructure go to pot. And nobody ever did anything. And Marcia, if you remember correctly, 28 years ago, I stood before this board, and I said to them, you guys got to start replacing those pipes now, a little bit each year, which I also started, Mike and I were going to start when I was in office, so many feet per year, which you guys are doing now, right? So, but now it's all falling apart all at once, and it's a really bad situation to be in. And it's something that many of us saw a long time ago. So let me see if there's anything else here. Like I said, as a last resort, if we can't straighten things out and get our fiscal house in order, then total consolidation should be considered. And there are people out there that are willing to carry petitions, and we'll try it again and go for it that way. Because we just can't keep going with the benefits. And I mean, you just can't do it. If you keep doing that, if you look at the projected rate that the unions are doing right now, I mean, I don't begrudge people a good pay, but I don't think we should pay for the benefits. I'm going to forget that. Bless you.
Thank you.
So I think outside of the sales tax revenue line, treasurer, is that going to be full-time or part-time?
Right now, just in case people didn't know, our treasurer, Joan Perez, handed in a letter of retirement last week. I believe that we can have the job done using a part-timer.
Okay.
So that's where my mentality is right now, and I would like to see that, because we would then save salary, we would save on benefits, we would save on retirement, it'd be a home run. So that's the direction we're moving in. But it's not something I want to commit at this point until we do further investigation of things working in-house. Because, I want to make sure that our current staff has the support they need here. But right now, based on how everyone's been doing, I feel that a part-time would be sufficient for that. So I believe that's the direction we're going to move in, but we're going to continue to have to evaluate how things go in the short term.
Well, I can't remember right off the bat, but what was the figure that you guys spent for an election?
1,500, I'm not positive.
It's 1,500 per election,
Does that
for
sound
village
about right?
election. That's the total cost. So there isn't too much saving there. I was thinking of possibly, changing when elections are done in the village to be held in November, when the town, run a general election, to save money there, and then you get more people participating and more people out and voting. It's something to look at down the road.
Well, they make you, regardless of what the turnout's going to be, the state makes you buy a certain amount of the ballots and things like that. And it's not a huge expense in the grand scheme of things, but it is real money. So it's worth looking into. I know that Chester just passed something like that.
And I wish you all luck in
Thank
doing
you
a
very
good
much.
job.
Thank you.
And I think you'll do a good job.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you coming down tonight. Anyone else? Yes.
Good evening, one and all. Bob Chafee, Oakcrest Drive, Village of Goshen. Just a couple quick things. I won't be long. I grabbed the document, the 39-page document, which I have only made one copy, but I distilled it down into 7 pages.
Oh, okay.
That's great.
That's consolidation right there.
And I think, it may not be 100% because some of the line items were not in this thing due to, some terminology that's contained in here. It's limitations of the printing equipment or something like that. You'll see the nomenclature in there that...
Some things were cut off in the printing?
Yeah. There was a notation in there.
Oh, I see what you're saying, okay.
But just a couple quick remarks about, salaries. On the back end of that document, I grabbed every salary line that I could figure out in the budget, and it looks like it comes up to close to $3 million. And you take all of the monies compared to the last year's adjusted budget compared to the proposed budget, and it looks like a 4.2% increase overall. There are some things in there that probably should be re-examined in terms of, what's appropriate, what's not appropriate. But in the overall scheme of things, it only represents about, 20-some-odd% of our total budget.
Depending if you factor in the water sewer.
Yeah, exactly. And the 900-pound gorilla in the room is the sewer area. Looks like we're looking at a 34.9% increase in that one line item.
Which line item is it?
Well, it's on the front of your little summary page there. You'll see that I have a problem using all of these line items, and what I tried to do is I tried to categorize everything into Maplewood-related expenses, police, highway, water, and sewer. So what I've done is I've created a Maplewood category for
What page is that?
It's not in there. I've created it.
Oh, you created it,
But I would sort of hope that we might be able to think along those lines in the future, so that, neophytes like myself can get a better handle on what's happening in each one of those units. And there are a number of line items as you go through here. If you look at something like unemployment insurance or disability insurance, when you hop from one of those categories to another, the percentage increases aren't equal from one category to another. Like you go to water and sewer and look at unemployment or disability, the percent increases for 2012 over 2011 aren't the same. I don't know why. You look at the MTA tax, it's not the same, for whatever reason. I'm not sure what the reason is. Maybe it's just the way I've looked at these numbers. I don't know.
Well, I think, and Mr. Veneri, if you can jump in if I'm incorrect on this. Before I comment, did you want to, I don't want to interrupt you.
No, those are just a few of the basic highlights, but, indeed there is a huge challenge for the board, and I know you're up to the job, and I'd like to back you in any way I can in terms of supporting whatever you do going forward from this point on.
Thank you.
Did you want to mention healthcare?
By just creating this document, just looking at it, this is a huge tool.
You've helped me.
Just for me, because this has all the information here, and this is how our new software program prints it out.
Yeah, which isn't terribly helpful.
It's not extremely accessible, so I think this is excellent. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, and the only reason I did add a percent change column in there so that you can target right in on looking the percent change, whether it's up or down.
Sure, when you see that spike.
Yeah, so you can see, what's going on there? I don't think, you as a board can look at line item by line item and get any feel for, what the change is just by looking at a gross number. When you look at a percentage shift, then you might be able to, focus in on the items that need focusing in on.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
It's one of those things, if you're always looking at one thing from one point of view, and you take a step 2 feet over and look at it another way, you might see something differently. Just to comment on the water sewer stuff that you mentioned with regard to things being proportioned. This year, we're really trying to hone in on making sure that our allocations of costs are accurate and how they're allocated among lines. Because, in the past, it's, we would say, okay, roughly this much should be sewer of man-hours and healthcare and all that. This should be water. But we're going to do moving forward, and Michael and Sarah Gilbert in the office, our deputy clerk, have been working on a system where he's actually going to be able to give a much more accurate documentation of where man-hours or women-hours are spent. So at the end of each day, it'll be much more collectively done, so if you can take a step back and say, all right, I know for a fact that on Tuesday there were 52 man-hours on DPW, 36 here, you know, whatever. So at the end of the year, we can use that as a blueprint to move forward.
Sure.
So it's just about making sure it makes sense, because, you know, it's all about being as, you know, accurate as possible.
And I will leave you with one final parting comment. I came down North Church Street this evening, and lo and behold, New York State Gas and Electric is ripping up our wonderful new pavement job, all the way up the street. You can see the marks that Michael's
All the way up.
gang have put down. Which leads me to a thought. In northern New Jersey, when a company like the gas company comes in and decides they're going to rip up everything to replace it because it needs to be replaced, they can't get away with just patching their little hole. They have to pave the whole side of the street that they ripped up, right to the center line. So, if you look at Golden Hill Avenue, what did they leave us with? A disaster. So in the future, I think we've got to look carefully at how we deal with companies like New York State Gas and Electric, because they leave us with a bloody mess on our hands that's very costly to us. And they don't care.
Yeah, they don't.
They absolutely do not care. So I'm sure North Church Street and Mike Upet did a wonderful job on the road. And, you know, a year later, bang, they're there. So,
That's a great point, thank you.
but now that I've seen how other communities and other states do it, you know, it's time to start thinking, okay, you're gonna rip up our roads? Okay, you're gonna pave the damn thing.
That's interesting, I'll look into that.
And we've done it with, when the cable lines came in, we got very stringent about the replacement, so we could look at what we did there and modify the laws for that.
Okay.
I'll even identify the town, Pompton Lakes, New Jersey.
That's great.
So it's done on the local level, not the state level?
I don't know, but it's done.
Well, it definitely merits investigation.
But it's, whatever the gas and electric company is there, public service, I guess, or something like that.
Sure.
Thank you.
That's great.
Any other members of the public? Great. Mr. Andrews?
Rental Andrews, 145 South Street, Goshen, New York. Are you going to prepare a more complete document to be looked at in whatever the time frame is that you're going to present the next
I guess
budget?
I'd have to ask what makes this document incomplete.
Well, you should have on there for the year 2010, the budgeted amount and then the actual amount.
For this past year?
Right, you have to have 2000, in other words, you'd have 2010
You're saying, you mean,
and then 2011.
well, we have 2011 here.
Right.
You're saying the year before?
But you have
2010. I think Mr. President, the mayor can answer that, correct?
Well, it's.
Why we don't have it?
Yes.
I think it's the new software that's been implemented. I'm not sure those numbers are in there.
Well, state law requires that to be there.
Oh, we're looking to see if it's printable.
I mean, that information is obviously ascertainable, you know, looking in our past budgets.
Yes, and in all the past budgets. You know, the number of years that they have gone back.
Okay, sure, with the software, right.
Well, I don't know whether it's with the software or what, but I mean, state law requires it.
So that shows the change from the previous year.
Correct.
I haven't read that in the law. I'm not saying it's not there. David, are you familiar with that section?
Brad, are you saying state law requires the last 2 years or the last 1 year?
Well,
Because what you have, I think, if I'm reading correctly, it says original 2011 budget. Don't they mean the 2010, 2011 budget?
Right.
2010, 2011.
So we have the current year budget as compared to the proposed following year budget. That was my understanding of the New York State Village Law requirements for your municipal budget, not the year prior. I'm happy to take a look at it again, because whatever needs to be in there needs to be.
last year's budget, you had...
Yeah, the format from that old program, because, yeah, I did, this is a different, this is helpful, obviously, if you can read it. The other had some issues, and the other program did have the prior year. My recollection, I think it's 5-506 in the village law, is that you had to have the current year, and you wanted to see the projected increase. I'm not aware, but I certainly will take a look at it, whether you need the year before, which would be the 2009, 2010.
Yeah.
Right, and what David said, and I said, that was with our previous software program, with the new one, it's not.
But what I'm saying is, I'm not sure, if the law requires it, right, no one will do it.
Of course.
Okay, I think it does.
And we'll investigate that, and if we need to have that extra line there, then that won't be a problem. We might have to put this into an Excel spreadsheet, because the program doesn't do it. But that's something that, I can sit at a computer and type in and print it out, that's not a problem.
Well, so I mean, seeing how this document really is complete, I mean, because you haven't really had a chance to...
Excuse me, everyone, we have a resident public speaking? I'm
You
sorry.
really haven't had a chance to go through it and analyze the whole thing completely, I don't think. Are we gonna have an opportunity to comment on what your changes are gonna be?
The law doesn't require that. Ultimately, we need to have this budget passed on May 1st, on or before May 1st. And there's only one public meeting before then, that's April 25th, that's the night of our public hearing on the sewer assessment. So this budget needs to be adopted that night. Public comments on the budget before we adopt it, I think that's absolutely, understandable, and I don't see an issue with that. But the timetable is such that that's the next public meeting, and we have to adopt it that night. That being said, my understanding is everything that needs to be in here from a legal perspective is, our council's gonna find out if that's the case. If it's not, we'll absolutely get in there and make it accessible as soon as possible. But I can tell you that we've looked through line items, I've looked through since Monday, and I have some ideas of things, but I cannot legally make a change prior to this public hearing. So when we have that meeting, I will mention the different changes that have been made to let the public know where the numbers are coming from. But to have a special meeting for that before, I just don't think the timetable allows it.
So that at the next meeting where you're gonna have the changes, we'll prepare basically another document.
It'll be, well, either this will be, if the law is the way council believes it is right now, it'll be the same document with changes made and specific line items. If we need to have the 2009 to 10 year, then that will be added as an additional column in some kind of spreadsheet format.
How many people are on the medical program for the village?
I'm not sure if I might have looked at that, Commissioner.
Don't know the number, but yeah, most full-time people are on unless they've opted out.
Is there any way you can find out what the number is?
I'm sure it's easily ascertainable.
Yeah, are there any part-timers on it? Are there any people that have retired that are on it?
Yeah, I'm not positive. We can definitely find out more information for you. It's not a problem.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Okay, Mr. Rooney, you had your hand raised first.
Hello, Mr. Mayor, how are you? Just maybe a suggestion, because we do have a short window in order to critique it. Would the board be acceptable for people emailing in some of their concerns to you, so by the time the next public meeting is done, you would also be able to get their additional comments, since there are not a lot of citizens here tonight to comment on it.
KyleRoddy@gmail.com, 5510699. I'm accessible. Email me, call me, anything you need. I have a letter to the Indy that's going to be in this Wednesday's issue mentioning my public informational session. That is a line item here, new business, and that also includes my email and phone number in it. So if you don't write it down now and you decide a few days, it'll be in the Indy this week. But yeah, I'm here most of the time. I was here for the most part all day today. I went out to lunch. Other than that, I'm around. If I'm not working at the restaurant, I'll be here. So just email me. I'll sit down with people. I'll talk on the phone, whatever's needed.
Thank you.
So you got your hand raised.
Yeah, Sue had a quick question on whatever.
Oh, yeah, I just had one more.
Sure.
How close are we getting to joint recreation becoming self-sustaining?
It's hard to say. I don't think very close because, they're still relying on the revenue from both the town and the village.
That's an incredible amount of money.
It is, but I can say from someone that's been a commissioner in Joint Rec for 2 years that the money is managed very well, and they're...
I'm not saying that.
Right.
What I'm saying, when you look at all the other communities in Orange County, I did a study of who was paying what, and it's incredible. When I called and I said how much we have here, they said, oh, you must be a very wealthy community.
I guess it comes down to what they can put into it, because I know, like, the Village of Walden has a full-time recreation corner, and it gets paid like $60,000 a year. And maybe if you have that full-time staff and, you know, part-time people helping, you can develop programs that can bring in new revenue.
Right, but
streams.
they had said years ago that it would eventually become self-sustaining.
Right,
I was here at those
I
meetings.
read the minutes
You
from
know?
that, right.
I mean, so we just can't expect that. I mean, if you're looking to save money, you know, not all of us can afford that. We really can't.
Oh, and I think the Joint Rec's trying to find creative ways to bring in more revenue, whether it's increasing the park rental applications and things like that. And, you know, they've definitely done a lot of downsizing of their staff. We have Kevin Armistead, one of the commissioners, he's basically our full-time head groundskeeper at the parks. Who works with
Are a lot more people using the Salesian?
I don't know, I think
I
this
very
summer,
rarely see too many people there.
I think this summer will be interesting, because hopefully that new bathroom will be hooked up by the time summer begins, or shortly thereafter, and we'll see if that increases traffic there. I don't know if it will, but it's something that we'll have to continue to evaluate.
Okay.
So,
I've got a couple of things. First of all, picking up on what Ray said, had it on my list anyway. I was going to suggest that you hold this public hearing open at least until the 24th and would allow additional input. You can close it at that time. I would like to see more time, but unfortunately, you had this dump in your lap and the calendar is running out on you. People really have not had an opportunity. It's been 7 days since this was released to the public, and there's quite a bit to go through. One of the things that this does not contain, that Mr. Donovan did not refer to, is the current assessed base, the value of the property, which I believe is required by 5-506. I haven't read it myself. I've had a copy read to me out of the Nikon manual of the points that are required in this, and that may have changed since that copy was printed.
there is a cover sheet that's available now that has that on there as well.
But it was not released to the public as required on the date it was required. Additionally, what was released in this worksheet did not include a projected tax levy, which I believe is also required by law. And there are a number of specific conditions that I believe this worksheet does not meet to be considered a tentative budget.
If I can just mention, the tax levy, I think, while it wasn't on the initial cover sheet, that information can be given by looking at this information.
It
It's
can
not
be
easy, it's not as accessible as you would
Right.
like, but the tax levy, all it is all your expenses, you know.
Understood.
Right.
But I believe it needs to be stated as an item on the budget itself.
And that's also on the cover sheet that's on the
Right.
current ones now.
Unfortunately, I think we're at a point where we are really in desperate shape financially. I think this is not run-of-the-mill where we stand today. I think it calls for some severe or radical action on the part of the board to address it going forward. There's not a great deal that can be done in terms of containing expenses this year. It's pretty much baked in the cake. There are salary issues in specific categories. There are numbers in here of 6, 8, 9% on particular salary increases, which I do not believe is acceptable to the people of the community. You see what's going on with the school board, not only here, but all over the state. People just aren't accepting it. One of the things that I'd like to suggest addresses the revenue side, which is not addressed really here at all, and which the board really has not had an opportunity to address and discuss. The one meeting you had, you basically were looking at the expense side, and there was no real discussion of the revenue side. Goshen needs to let the business community know that we're open for business. Absolutely. One of the ways of doing that, I believe, is to declare a 5-year moratorium on architectural district considerations in the core village. It's one of the biggest objections that developers have in coming into the community building. They need to get a reasonable rate of return on their investment and with the architectural requirements, that's simply not feasible. It means they're taking too much square footage out of production, essentially, and squeezing their margins. People end up walking away. I mean, this isn't exactly news. Property within the village has fallen to ridiculous levels simply because it can't be sold. And that goes beyond simply the fact that we're in a bad economic environment. The crown jewel of property in the core village, the price keeps going down and down, and it's not moving. That is significant not because it's not being sold, but because of what it says about the attractiveness of Goshen to people who are looking to invest. So I would suggest taking a look at a moratorium for a defined period of time, after which it can be reconsidered. Sue's idea of progressive tax abatement above and beyond the IDA, I think is a very good one. Should be looked at and assessed. Mortgage tax on the expense side, or on the revenue side rather. Mortgage tax in here has been reduced from, if memory serves, from 80 to 65, but if you look at the mortgage tax that was generated this year, it's under 30.
There's another big payment yet to come in, that's why. That's not through the end of the year, Joel.
Right. Nonetheless, we all know that assessed values and market values are down. Sales are down. Goshen's becoming a very hard sell if you talk to anybody in the real estate business, and I don't know if that's a reasonable projection going forward.
Refinances also enter into the mortgage tax as well. So
Right.
if people refinance at 6 or 7% mortgage, 2 or 3 or 4%, there's a mortgage tax.
Right. Sue mentioned the county sales tax. I know that the town had mentioned that they got a bigger than anticipated chunk coming out of Woodbury Commons because the county got an overpayment and distributed it to municipalities. But I didn't see any line in here that dealt with sales tax.
Sales tax is called the non-profit tax distributed by.
That's what that is. Okay.
Where is that at? What page is that on?
It's on page 1,
A1120.
No, what page?
page 114.
Page 1.
Moving on, the Arden Hill is not a concern in terms of property tax revenue, but we're going to be losing a big chunk of use fees. Simply, BOCES is not going to be able to provide the same level of use that the hospital did, and I didn't see that adjusted in here either. I'd like to commend the board for putting in the $485 on the sewer repair and replace. Last year, Sue Cleaver put it before the board that begging you to do it. It's, as Sue spoke to, it's been decades that it needs to be addressed and it hasn't. On the other hand, I didn't see a similar item in here for water and for the dam, both of which are going to be significant investments, and we need to get started now on programmatic repair and replace. Probably everybody in the room has seen Bob Weinberger's op-ed piece in the Chronicle and the Indy. But for the record, I would just like to read his 5 points, because I think it's a good place to start in dealing with the budget, and I'd like it to be on the record. Number 1, stop spending more than is taken in. Freeze wages, take a hard look at duplication of services, adjust hiring, wage, and benefits package costs. 2, pay as you go. No new debt. 3, merge police services, planning and building inspector, Department of Public Works, administrative personnel, and legal services with the town of Goshen. 4, become proactive for commercial industrial development. Commercial development shifts tax burden away from residential property as it delivers a higher valuation. Commercial property also provides a magnet for additional economic activity. As an aside, a drum that I've been beating for quite a few years. It's a means to distribute and balance tax burden to the population. Goshen should be, quote, "open for business," end quote. And 5, stop providing tax-free services to the county. The tax-exempt county should not have a free ride for fire, police, and infrastructure maintenance expenses. The last one I'd like to speak to just briefly. Sue mentioned it sort of offhandedly. I would like to see this board and the town board jointly approach the county and have, with a proposal for the county to assume traffic policing. It would allow a reduction of both police departments and allow them to do real police work. Not that traffic isn't real police work, but it would allow criminal police work rather than traffic enforcement. County's already here. They pay us nothing in lieu of taxes. This would be a service they could provide in lieu of taxes to both the town and the village, because both entities are at a disadvantage because of the loss of revenue from the county not being on the rolls. That's not exactly a merger. And while you spoke, Kyle, to your feelings about a merger, I think we need to remember one thing. When you talk about consolidation, people dig in their heels. We are one community. We don't have 2 little leagues. We don't have 2 sets of churches. We don't have 2 schools, 2 libraries. We are one community. The idea of approaching a sharing of services and leaving the entities in place, I think, would be more palatable to the community, to members of the community. There would be less resistance. People are desperate for costs to be cut. As I just alluded to, Goshen's becoming a very hard sell. I'm hearing stories from realtors about people who are all set to buy something and then do their due diligence and find out what the taxes are and turn around and walk away. And those are people that have gotten this far. A lot of people aren't even getting that far because of the costs here. So I would really urge the board to make an outreach for the town and together go to the legislature, not Eddie Diana, but go to the legislature with a proposal. I think we have enough political connections between the 2 boards that there's a good chance that the legislature could be moved to do something equitable for the community. And with that, I think I'm done.
Thank you. Anyone else like to comment? Neil?
Not quite as complicated, but a potential revenue stream occurred to me. This village hall used to rent 2 apartments, right? 2? One up where Ted Lewis's office is, and one at the far end of the building here. And my recollection was that was offsetting the expense of maintaining this building. And the thought occurs to me is that we have equal amount of room as these 2 rooms, that room, and the 2 on the other side, right below us in the basement. And there's a fireplace down there. That's where the kitchen used to be. When this was a bank, they utilized that space. That's where the vault was. So the thought occurred to me is bring that basement up to speed. It's ground level. It's wheelchair accessible. There's 2 entrances, exits, I believe, on the back side of the building. There's one on the front, under each porch. And the thought occurred to me is that the village could take some of the surplus bluestone. I actually have some that my family doesn't want to use, so maybe I could donate that back to the village. Put down a nice bluestone floor down in the basement, maybe take it down 4 or 6 inches if the height of the ceiling is an issue. And then, because I know the village rents out this space occasionally, right?
I know the youth football is in this room, I'm not sure.
Okay. Well, I'm thinking in commercial terms. You can rent out the downstairs. Just, one thought that occurs to me is for lawyers' depositions. We got the Orange County Court System right across the street, Orange County Government Center. There's no lawyers' lounge. There's no real place for lawyers to depose, witnesses, people. So I was thinking maybe you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 potential rooms you could rent out for that purpose, until they build the new Orange County Government Center, if they ever do. If they don't, then, I would imagine the word would get around pretty quick across the street that this space is available to out-of-town attorneys or in-town attorneys or what have you. Or they could be rented out as commercial space. I mean, just this room alone here in the village would probably fetch about $2,000 a month, maybe $1,000, right? as a commercial space, maybe it could be a little coffee shop, which would be nice for the village staff. You could just go downstairs and back up again. It could save you a trip downtown. Or the other thought that occurred to me is maybe, and don't anybody take this the wrong way, but maybe move the police station downstairs. Yeah? And then rent out the police station downtown. That's right in the middle of the business district. Potentially it could be retail space or restaurant space or whatever. Or vice versa. Yeah, keep the police station where it is and rent out this space downstairs. And the other thought that occurs to me is that there's an attic space in the building, which is just as large as this, what this floor accommodates. I'm sure there'd be fire regulation issues, fire escape issues and stuff, but it might be worth looking into. Might be worth looking into just to rent out a storage space. Maybe there's somebody that's looking for a place just to store, I don't want to say paper or books, but because the floors. But it might be worth just looking into. At the very least, I think the downstairs is very viable, and I can't imagine that would cost more than $10,000 to bring up to speed, and potentially that could be brought back into. And on my end, that's a radical estimate. I think it could be done more conservatively, but I think that downstairs space is worth looking into. It doesn't make any sense to just have that there and not use it. And then any heat that's generated, you can put in radiant floor heating down there, and then anything that escapes downstairs is going to end up here and then ultimately upstairs.
You won't just be off-gassing heat. So
anyway, that's my simple thought, is utilize that space downstairs. At the very least, maybe just to offset the expense of this building. Maybe that'll pay for the heating bill.
No, it's worth looking into. Thank you.
And then, of course, this, which has already been mentioned already, like compact fluorescent lighting. I know, what are these, 60-watt bulbs up here? You got 7 of them? Right. And I noticed anyway, as a cameraman, just that it casts a yellow light on you. So I bet you it'd look a lot better if you had some, maybe you might want to try it, some fluorescent lighting up there. And just a couple of fluorescent bulbs in here would, I would imagine, make a difference. I'm surprised that they're not in here already. But then we were talking about this the other night, the period lighting around the village. That's an issue at this point now because Orange and Rockland doesn't want to adopt the maintenance of those period lighting, for whatever the reasons are. So if you're going to have to look at reevaluating all of that anyway, it might be worth considering putting a solar panel on each one of those lights and using a LED light bulb instead of the high-end lights that are in there now. And I would imagine you'd get a little bit of financing from Washington for something like that.
For what it's worth, that's not radical. That's actually something that is becoming mainstream.
Yeah, that's not radical. If you drive up the Quickway, just one that I know of right off the top of my head is, I think it's town of Burlingham or Bloomingburg. They have the welcome the whatever it is, Berg sign there, and they got a solar panel. It's about this big, and it just lights the thing up all night.
Mm-hmm. Interesting ideas. I think the downstairs thing is intriguing. We'd have to do some kind of estimate to find out if it's viable, but...
At the very least, maybe stick a ping pong table down there.
Or an espresso bar.
But I really do think that there's a viable market for that. I know that Daniel McMahon will tell you that the... Quality Inn, is that what it is, out of Comfort Inn? Is renting out space to attorneys for depositions, out-of-town attorneys. We get calls all the time across the street here. We turn people away, actually. So instead of turning them away, we could just, hey, there's a place right across the street.
You got to make sure you keep up your reputation, right?
What reputation might that be?
And not have attorneys rent space in your...
While you were talking, the period light outside died.
Okay.
Right.
So, food for thought.
Thank you very much.
Sure. Thanks for the opportunity.
No, came back on.
Any other public comment today on the budget? Yes. Strangers?
There was an item, A, 16204670, building and maintenance, Maplewood maintenance repair. You had $25,000 in it for last year, and you're putting $25,000 in it for this year, so that's $50,000. So I was just wondering that's a considerable expense.
I believe,
I'll
okay.
I'll if you don't mind.
By all means.
We have a grant that has, we provide certain amount of funding, and their county is giving us the additional funding. There was a holdup on the county that Michael and I were just talking about before the meeting, as a matter of fact, where we get to redo the ramp and the walk coming up and replace the broken spokes on the railway. That is our part of the funding, in order to be able to maintain that. It doesn't equal 50, it's 25, it's the 25.
You're saying the ramp's gonna cost $25,000 our share?
No, you have other maintenance that you have to do throughout the year on the building rent. I mean,
Well, they had last year 25, and now you got another 25, so you...
Just because it was in the
No.
budget doesn't mean it was spent, though.
Well, then you'd have a fund balance, and you have zero for the fund balance.
Well, but that doesn't mean every line isn't in equilibrium, unfortunately. I mean, I
That's correct, that's why you're supposed to generate a fund balance. And
Sure.
I think that's his point.
There has to be a fund balance in there, as you say, every line is gonna be, spent.
We can analyze that for you, Ren, and find out
It's
exactly.
not just
what
me,
we
it's
have.
the community.
No, I mean, in general.
If they're supposed
Suppose $50,000 in a fund balance, and it helps to reduce the rate of taxes they
to
pay.
impose on people.
It gets to the heart of, we need to continue to look at what our expenses are and analyze the costs of maintaining the building and all that. So, but I think it's a good question. If you want more specifics, we can absolutely ascertain that. I'm sure Marcia could get
We'll
that
find
stuff
it.
very easily,
Yeah.
and we can go from there.
Okay, thank you.
I had a quick question. Are the large salary increases on things, on that page, for example, on central garage mechanic, there's a 7.35% salary increase. Is that a step increase that's mandated? Or is that?
Contractually, there were percentages and step increases installed there, yes.
Are those CSEA positions?
I believe so,
Yes.
Yeah, they are.
And what about village clerk, treasurer, and treasurer's clerk? Are those,
The non-union employees under the previous administration were given basically the same results as the union employees. And that's not unique because, at least for two reasons. One, I don't feel that non-union employees should be punished for not being in union. And if you go another route and give the non-union employees less than the unions are getting, then they will unionize. So that's the rationale for that. But I think, it goes to the larger point that's been made about salaries and moving into the next round of negotiations, we need to focus on that.
is that also the explanation on the patrolman's line, which is now at $1,044,600 or $1,044,700? That's a 6.29% increase. Is that because of step increases or hiring of more people?
No new hiring in there, Joel.
So why is that such a large percentage increase?
Well, it's because of the step system, and also, you should note that on the revenue side, we're gonna get $108,000 back from the county for patrolman services also, on the revenue side. So there is a slight offset on the revenue side, I want you to know.
Which abates the pain to us, but doesn't really ameliorate the fact that it's over a 6% increase with the same number of people.
The step system, the way it was inherited.
Any other questions or comments? Yes.
One more question.
Sure.
What happened to the community development grant money for Greenwich and Green on the corner there by the Sunoco? What? Where is that money at? Are they gonna, can you
The
take?
drainage work.
The drainage work, can you take that money and put it somewhere, or are we gonna lose it? Are we losing it?
No, we have an application into community development for that work now. Unfortunately, it's taking community development a long time to review those plans and specifications, but the application...
But we already have the approval for it. We have the money for that
The
project.
money's there, that's correct. Still there.
Same thing that's going on with this. The money is there. They have not come.
Yeah, they haven't come
It's
back.
in their court now to come back to us.
What's the problem? What's the
I don't know.
problem?
We've called several times to find out why they haven't processed and finished processing the
They have
application.
problems with the DOT?
No, we're past that.
You're past that, so that's approved.
Well, no, we're not going to go to the DOT, so they're not involved in the application any longer. And we modified our application and we sent it back into community development several months ago and waiting for them to reply.
Oh, yeah, they're really good. All you gotta do is pick up the phone and call them, whoever's in charge of the
Maybe
highway.
you could try that tomorrow for us, we appreciate it.
I never had problems with it. They were always good, easy to get along with.
Give them a call.
No, I can't do that, you know I can't do that. They're wacky.
Okay, well, I want to thank everyone for coming out to speak to the budget tonight. We will keep, if the board is okay.
If I could suggest this, because there's no real forum for a public hearing, so the kind of idea, you do this, and by that I mean there's no give and take, as you see tonight. What happens if you have a public hearing under seeker is that you would close the public hearing, but you leave it open for purpose of written comment. And if you wanted to leave it open till April 24th at 5 o'clock, so you would close this portion, because there's not going to be another forum for this, but you want to accept written comment, you close this portion of the hearing, you leave it open for purpose of written comment until a date and time certain.
Is that amenable to the rest of the board?
And that's pro forma, that's the way it should be.
Okay, so that if the board is okay with that,
That's fine.
So just make sure, I'll suggest it as a Sunday, but people can use the computer if they've got email, so April 24th, 2011 at 5 p.m. Or you make it a different time, but that's
Easter Sunday.
Easter Sunday.
Okay, that sounds very simple. Do we need to pass a resolution on that?
You do. If you want to make it noon the day, I'm just,
Don't make it stop on Easter Sunday.
Okay, so we'll make it end on Monday then.
Monday morning.
Monday at noon. So,
I'll make a motion that we do that on Monday.
Second.
okay. All in favor? Okay. All right, so that concludes the budget hearing for tonight, and we'll proceed with the rest of the meeting. We hope everyone sticks around, but those that do leave, thank you for coming in tonight. And Mr. Chafee, I just want to thank you. This is really an excellent work.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it.
There are typing errors in there.
That's okay.
It's okay.
Okay, so we'll continue on with our regular agenda. The first item is the minutes of the March 28, 2011 Village Board meeting. I'll need someone to make a motion to accept the minutes.
So moved.
Second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, consensus. We have some communications. If I could just have some order, please. We have a letter from the Goshen Chamber of Commerce. Dear Mayor, Body, and Trustees, please accept this letter as a request for permission to use Village Square for our upcoming Goshen Farmers Market. Pending your permission, our opening date shall be Friday, May 20th, 2011. The 2011 Goshen Farmers Market is scheduled to run every Friday, 10 a.m. until 5 p.m., May 20th through October 28th. Please note that due to conflict of vendor setup for the Great American Weekend, market will not occur on July 1st, 2011, unless an alternate market site can be located. A copy of our insurance certificate and all other papers will be sent under separate cover. Our vendors will not be permitted to open unless all their necessary paperwork is completed and submitted to the village clerk. We also require that all vendors comply with all applicable laws and regulations. Please do not hesitate to call me if you have any questions. As always, we are grateful for the continued cooperation which the Village of Goshen has shown us regarding the Goshen Farmers Market. We will be in contact with you regarding the time of our green ribbon opening ceremony and opening day festivities. Again, thank you for your cooperation and consideration. We look forward to another terrific season. Sincerely, Lisa Young, Executive Director. All right, I'm in favor of giving permission. Rest of the board? Okay, so...
You want a...
Do we have to...
yes.
Okay, so can I have someone to make a motion? Second? Second, all in favor?
Wait, comment.
Comment? Okay.
Comment? I have a comment. I do this at my own risk, Mr. Hickok, because the last time we did this, I was so excited at the concept of having the mushroom man back that I was doing a jig at the end of his showing, but I have to tell you, I'm very excited about having the mushroom man back.
I'm very excited as well. It's a very exciting time of the year.
Good luck, we're very excited to have them all. That's it.
Any further comments? All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Another letter from the Goshen Chamber of Commerce. Dear Mayor Roddy and trustees, please accept this letter as a request for permission to use the parking lot of the Department of Public Works on Friday, May 6, 2011, between the hours of 8 a.m. and 3:30 for a recovery day of electronic equipment, computer monitors, workstations, etc. These items would not be picked up during the village's junk week, but the residents and businesses need a venue in which to safely dispose of these objects. We have partnered with one of our members, Advanced Recovery, Inc., to provide an opportunity for people to dispose of their old electronic, CRT, and computer equipment. Advanced Recovery would bring all of the equipment, labor, and material necessary for this collection event. The items would be collected at no cost to local residents and businesses. The only thing we need is a space to which to locate a 28-foot box truck. Superintendent Michael Nesleis and I have spoken at length about the possibility of holding this event and the use of DPW parking lot. For further information regarding Advanced Recovery, Inc., you can visit their website, www.advancedrecovery.com, electronic recycling as HTML. Of course, we will supply whatever paperwork the village deems necessary. We look forward to working with the village on this event, which will benefit the residents, businesses, and the environment. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me. Thank you for your consideration. Sincerely, Lynn Ciron, Executive Director. Sounds like a nice service to provide our residents, given that bills can't be picked up during junk week. Michael, you want to comment on that?
I guess maybe a misunderstanding. I thought it was more for the businesses.
It's for businesses and residents.
Yeah, because for the residents, we do pick up.
Right, well, we,
Yeah,
for the
yep.
businesses.
Yeah, I just didn't want that
Okay.
figured out. For
Yeah.
junk week, we do the TV sets, computer monitors, and microwaves. We do pick up separately.
But if a resident forgets and has it at
That's
home,
fine. Yep.
Okay. All right, do I have a motion, discussion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Just that there's a, what the date it goes out, Michael, there's a definite pickup date, so it doesn't stay down on the, in the driveway.
No, but that's fine.
I
Yeah,
just wanna make sure
we're all set
If
with
I
that.
can comment on,
Yeah.
they will come down with the truck, they leave with the truck. So the
Okay.
truck, it's from
Cool.
that time, that day, they're gone. So it doesn't stay on the
Yeah, no,
property.
there's plenty of space there.
No, I'm not worried about the space, just didn't want to stay in there.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we have an abstract of vouchers. On a motion by trustee,
Shore.
seconded by trustee,
Stewart.
bills as examined by members of the board were approved in accordance with abstract 2010-2011, number 25, check numbers 1449 through 1490, in the amount of $550,433.93. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And that's funds already spent. And because good things come in threes, we have another letter from the Goshen Chamber of Commerce. Dear Mayor Roddy and village trustees, the Goshen Chamber of Commerce is in the process of planning for the upcoming 30th Great American Weekend. The event will be returning to Church Park on Saturday, July 2nd and Sunday, July 3rd. The Chamber and the Great American Weekend Committee greatly appreciates the support and cooperation of the Village of Goshen prior to and during this event. The Chamber of Commerce respectfully requests for the village to once again be a joint sponsor for the Great American Weekend and to provide the required insurance coverage under the village policy. We will keep the village informed of all planning activities and schedules as details become available to us. We look forward to working together again this year to make the Great American Weekend 2011 a huge success. Thank you for your consideration. Sincerely, Maureen Quattrini, Great American Weekend Committee. That's obviously a wonderful event in the village of Goshen for the whole community. Do I have a first for discussion?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Any comments or discussion? Okay, I think this is one of the best weekends of the year for the village and town, and I think it's a great thing. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Passes. Last, we have the letter from Mike and Tully Engineers. This is regarding the county DPW hookup to our sewer system. Dear Mayor Riley, attached, please find a copy of the review letter, which I sent to Mr. Charles Lee, Commissioner of the Orange County Department of Public Works. I have discussed these comments with Mr. Lee, and he has indicated that the county will comply to all of our requests. Therefore, this being the case, my office has no further comments in regard to this connection. Yours truly, Arthur Tully. I'm just going to read the letter from Mr. Tully to Mr. Lee. Dear Chuck, I have reviewed the information which you submitted on April 4th, and I would like to offer the following comments. Would you please provide the village with a copy of the plans and specifications for the sewer collection system, pump station, and force main for village records? Since your facility presently receives its water supply from the village of Goshen and that water use is metered, it is my understanding that the sewer flows and billing will be based on water meter readings. However, additionally, the village would like to have the opportunity to make spot checks of the system's operation at mutually convenient time. The village would also ask that the county provide confirmation that all other sources of water supply, i.e. wells, have been disconnected from the facility's water supply system, and that the only water being used by the facility is water as provided by the village of Goshen. In regards to the oil and grit separator, the village would like assurances that this is maintained and cleaned on a regular basis, and therefore would ask the county to provide evidence and documentation in regards to this. At the time of construction, Orange County DPW will give village 48-hour notice prior to start of pipe installation. These are my comments at this time. Please contact me if any questions or comments. Basically, Art, you can just jump in. It seems, I asked you to determine if there was any environmental concerns you had with the county hooking up their sewer system at the DPW to our infrastructure. You had these comments, and it seems, based on everything the commissioner has said to you, that everything seems to be environmentally benign, and a village hookup would be appropriate?
Yes.
Okay. David, can we have a resolution put together for our next board meeting?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. All right, so there's no voting on that. We'll have to vote that night.
Can I just make a comment on this?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'd like to, just for the record, they're going to be paying out of district rates. They are, absolutely. They are, as well, their maintenance schedule, is there anything beyond just notification that is maintained that's necessary?
I don't know.
I mean, all we ask for here is for them to let us know how often they maintain.
You're referring to the grit removal system here?
Pardon me?
You're referring to the grit removal system?
That, and even here, where it says, the village would also ask confirmation, no, that's not the other, yeah. That and up here, we want specs.
Well, that's the specs
Plans and specs
for the construction.
for the construction.
Right.
And then after that, they maintain,
Right.
they take care of breakage, but,
Exactly.
yeah, but it has to say that. Don't you think it has to say?
No, it's a service
It
connection.
has to say that, it's just a service.
That's correct.
Okay. On top of that, I just wanted to be that we're aiding. I wanted to be on the record that we're aiding the county here, and that this is one municipality helping another municipality. It does not extend sewer service without evaluation to the length and breadth of that entire area. One municipality aiding another municipality.
And it'll be a new sewer user, which we could definitely use.
Paying.
Yes. Does anyone else have any other comments on this issue?
No.
Okay. Moving on to items of business. We have our resolution. Yes. We have a resolution on this sewer special assessment. We have the date of that. This is to give more clarity to the issue. Whereas the Village of Goshen has heretofore been compelled to construct a new wastewater treatment facility by the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation so as to come in compliance with the applicable provisions of the New York State Environmental Conservation Law and the United States Clean Water Act. And whereas, in order to comply with the directives issued by the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, the village has heretofore been compelled to borrow monies in order to pay for the construction of the new wastewater treatment facility, as well as the remediation of certain material that was stockpiled during the excavation of the site for the new wastewater treatment facility, which stockpiled material must now be disposed of in accordance with law. And whereas, the Village of Goshen must raise the existing capital assessment on sewer charges for the purpose of paying the debt incurred in connection with complying with the directives of New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. Whereas the proposed increase to this current special assessment will be the subject of a public hearing to be held on Monday, April 25th, 2011. Now, therefore, it is hereby resolved that the Village Board for the Village of Goshen at the public hearing scheduled for Monday, April 25th at 7:30 p.m. or as soon thereafter as the matter may be heard, will consider an increase in the special sewer assessment to $170 per unit per quarter for the purpose of repaying the debt hereto described. And that's to pay off the cost of remediating the stockpile site. This contains the current assessment of $70 or $80. So it's an increase of $100. It's unfortunate, and I wish I didn't have to sit here and be the one to say this. However, it's the reality, and to maintain our village's fiscal solvency in the sewer department, it's the unfortunate reality. We're going to be sending notices out to residents. I'll be holding a public informational meeting here on the 20th. That's also an item on here I'll get back to. All I can say is we need to continue to move forward to find revenue streams for the sewer department so that we can get this number down as soon as possible. And I've also asked Attorney Donovan to look into potentially lowering the amounts for individuals on Social Security fixed income, find out if that's legally viable. Any other comments before a roll call vote?
We need someone to move second as well.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. All right. Meg, we need a roll call vote?
Trustee Char.
Aye.
Trustee Matthews. Trustee Smith.
Aye.
Trustee Stewart.
Aye.
Okay. So that would be at the April 25th board meeting at 7:30. Okay. So thank you very much. Okay, next we have a proposal from Lincoln Tully Engineering for a trunk line replacement. And Art, do you just want to describe this project briefly for the residents?
Yeah, this is located...
Wait, skip one.
Skip one? Oh, I'm sorry.
Hang on,
Pardon me, one moment, Art. All right. This is to hire a architect for the planning board in the Village of Goshen. I'll just read the resolution briefly. The Village Board of the Village of Goshen hereby agrees to contract with Welton A. Apt, Architect PC, for architectural consulting services for the Village of Goshen Architectural Design District, and accepts the proposed outline in Mr. Apt's correspondence of April 7, 2011. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any comments on this?
I know he has served the village planning board extremely well. He is a reasonable man, and he has done terrific work.
And in addition to that, he's the planning board's choice for an architect.
On top of that.
And they are the ones that are going to be working with this individual, not the village board. So I believe that they should be able to have their say on who they have. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. All right. Art, now would you describe the trunk line replacement?
As a section of sewer main, which is immediately above the sewage treatment plant, which serves as a header. It collects sewage from 3 different locations, and it had been previously identified at the time when the sewage treatment plant was constructed as a pipe that probably should be replaced because of its inadequate capacity, and we believe that it's contributing to the sewer backups in times when there's rainfall in the village and we have high flows due to I&I. And we've identified it as one of the remediation or mitigating measures that we can take in our ongoing struggle with our I&I problem and eliminating the surcharges that are happening downtown in the village. So it's about 600 feet of pipe. The first part of it is to do a topographic survey to check the field conditions, and the second part is engineering services will be for the evaluation of the hydraulic analysis. And that's what the proposal is for tonight, as to go through with that.
All right, thank you. So this is for the planning portion of this.
It's for the planning and design of it, correct?
And I know this was mentioned in our meeting that we had at the DEC.
Right.
And they're very much in favor of us taking this action, and they believe that it'll have a big impact in helping with our overflows.
If I may just add, I did receive a phone call from Mr. Kowalczyk, the attorney, the environmental compliance attorney at the Attorney General's office today, inquiring, or making it clear, if they didn't make clear at our meeting, that this is their alternative, this is what they want us to move forward with. I understand that Art's office is going to meet with staff personnel at the DEC on Wednesday, but he wanted to let me know that this is the state's preferred alternative in terms of making some, addressing some immediate concerns that they have.
So within this year, we're going to be doing the sewer main fix on Erie Street, and this by the wastewater treatment plant.
Correct.
And then whatever other information we get from the surveying, the studying of our infrastructure, Mr. Tully's firm and Mr. Leslie's crews will be working together. We'll go from there.
Right, and we're looking at, I met with Mike today, we're anticipating starting the work on the Erie Street rehab sometime next month, probably in the middle of the month. We have to wait until the weather clears up a bit because all this rain is making it almost impossible to work down there. But as soon as it dries out sufficiently, Mike and I will get together and get started on that.
Good, excellent. You guys are doing a great job. Thank you very much. Okay, do I have a motion?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Any board member comments?
You can be happy and taking care of the job, that's good.
We're getting it done. All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah, wonderful. Okay, we have a government accounting school or water training course, sorry. All right, Tom Lane and Daniel Slinsky are hereby authorized to attend the Grade D Initial Certification Course being held on May 24th through 27th, 2011 at the Florida Fire Hall in Florida, New York. It is understood the total cost of this training is $800. All right, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second,
Any comments?
glad it's local.
Yeah, absolutely, no hotel rooms or anything. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, this is governmental accounting school. Deputy Clerk Treasurer Goldberg is hereby authorized to attend the Office of the State Controller's Division of Local Governmental Accounting School to be held in the town of Corning on April 26th, 2011. The cost for this training is $85 plus lodging. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right. Thank you, and I just want to commend Sarah for really stepping up in the office here. She's doing a great job helping out with some treasury items. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, carries. Okay, this last two things, people that know me, and, I'm big on social media. I think that it's an emerging trend in the way that we communicate. And I just know through the businesses I've been involved with that help with using social media can help individuals connect and get information out there faster and cheaper than ever before. So I'm starting this week, I'm going to start maintaining a Village of Goshen Facebook page to put information out to residents. Hopefully residents will follow the page and be able to get information. We're still going to put information out all the traditional ways using the print media and everything like that, but I feel like this will help get the information out there even more. Casting that wider reach can only help us, so I'm going to be using that. And also because I think, it'd be nice for the village to be a thought leader in the use of social media. There's also Foursquare is another location-based social media service that actually has a wide following in the Village of Goshen compared to other communities. If you go down to our local businesses, some of them have Foursquare stickers that the Chamber has actually been encouraging and doing a great job. Just to commend Luciano and Ray Quattrini for really helping get that out there. So I'm going to actually, there's a national thing with Foursquare on April 16th, it's National Foursquare Day, and I'm going to declare that in the Village of Goshen. For those people that use Foursquare, it'll be our little Foursquare Day in the village. No cost, no major implications, but I think it's nice to encourage things like that, because just for example, the practicality of this stuff, Carol Cullen, who works for the library, she's checked in at different historical locations and left tips there with historical tidbits about different places. So for someone that's visiting the village to check in and say, oh wow, this library used to be boom, boom, I think it's kind of cool. So that's that. And last, I mentioned earlier, but I'm taking great pains in this whole assessment increase, as I know as the rest of the village board and village staff. And I want to be able to communicate with as many residents as possible and get the information out to residents so they can understand the events that preceded this rate increase, the current events associated with it, and my ideas on how to move things forward. So that night will be Wednesday, April 20th at 6:30. That's going to be at the Senior Center. So if there is a large crowd, there'll be plenty of room. And actually, I'm not sure if we declared this, but we should probably have that 25th meeting at the Senior Center. Do we need to make a motion on that tonight, Mike?
I would suggest that you go ahead and do that, just to be clear.
Yeah.
That's going to be at the Senior Center, and the publication reflects that, and there will be notices that we send that as well, that will also reflect that.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, so a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so the April 25th board meeting will be at the Goshen Senior Center. So if we do have a large amount of people that come out, we'll have ample space for everyone. As will my information session be there. With that, I will open it up to trustee comments. Trustee Matthews, would you like to begin?
Sure. Leak detection evaluation, our yearly evaluation of the water system. We've had great success over the last 2 years that we've been, particular success in the last 2 years in finding leaks. They come through with a machine, that's their leak detection device, and we've been able to help homeowners in locating leaks that they have to take care of and finding leaks that we've not known existed because they don't always come to the surface. They'll be coming through from the 26th to the 29th of April, which should have absolutely no impact on anyone other than us finding whether we have any more leaks. The reservoir is full. We are moving forward in our meetings with the county. I know right now we have, regarding the CRB well, we know that Jim Ulrich is responding to the DEC, wanting to make sure that our drought warnings are coordinated with all of the information that they have, and he's working on that with them right now, and the county. Michael has promised without hesitation and with great zeal that our planting program will begin very quickly. He and I will be meeting beginning of next week in order to make sure that we've selected the appropriate trees. So anyone, we have grant money for this, so please make sure that if you are requesting a street tree, just a tree between the sidewalk and the street, that you fill out one of the forms and that you let us know whether there are wires in the way. That helps us pick an appropriate species. That's it.
Thank you. Trustee Stewart?
Yes. Report to the Department of Public Works, March 29th through April 11th, 2011. Crews are straightening and replacing faded signs within the village. Yard waste composting has started for the season. Please adhere to the rules. I do notice when I go around, I see huge piles of limbs and branches and stuff sitting out there. I read the rules a couple of times in the last few weeks, but it's got to be bundled. It's got to be, 3 feet?
Yes, in length, yep.
You can't just cut down all your trees and throw them in the front yard. So if you have any questions, the rules have been published. Branches are being trimmed that protrude into the roadway or obstruct motor vehicle and sign vision. Michael's also asked me to announce again, which I think has been advertised in the paper, but everybody should be aware that we're doing single stream recycling. I put mine out last week. You can put it all out. And when I say all, I mean you can put out the things that are permissible. But that means that you don't have to put the newspapers out one week and the plastic and the cans out the next week. You put it all out every Wednesday. Does that include the 5th Wednesday?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So you can put it out every Wednesday. That's great. Just have one other comment. This is my 4th mayor. I brought this up before. I know that nothing's going to be done about it anytime soon, but I brought it up when Marcia was the mayor, when Scott was the mayor, John. When you look at the end of the notice for the public hearing, it lists the mayor's salary. We have in this municipality, if you take the sewer fund, the general fund, and the water fund, the 12.5 plus almost $13 million budget, and the mayor is paid the salary of $23,000 a year. That just, to me, has never seemed adequate for the job. It's clearly not a part-time job, nor should it be. I think the mayor and this mayor has proven that by being here every day for considerable, numerous hours. So, obviously, I brought it up now for 4 mayors, and nothing's ever been done about it, but I think somewhere down the road, I know it will have to be proposed before the mayor would be to take another term, but $23,000 a year for the chief executive officer of the village seems to me to be woefully inadequate for the duties. And that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Stewart. Trustee Chang?
Thank you. Try to read this word for word. The chief is named Patrolman Smoltzy, Malgieri, Rab, Theo, Decembri, and Gregorio as the Police Chiefs Association of Orange County Officers of the Year for 2010. Patrolman Smoltzy, Malgieri, Rab, Theo, and Decembri are named in the Life Saving Award category for their CPR defibrillator efforts to save the lives of 2 people. Patrolman Gregorio...
3 people. That was my typo.
Oh, you might find a typo after 2 years.
That was my fault.
Patrolman Gregorio is named in the Exceptional Police Duty category for his training and development of the CPR defibrillator program that has resulted in this department having achieved 4 CPR defibrillator saves in the last 2 years. They will be formally recognized in a ceremony to be held at the Orange County 911 Center Auditorium on Saturday, June 4, 2010 at 3 p.m. Everyone is invited to attend. Congratulations to all of those officers. They definitely deserve it. And one other note, NYSEG replacing gas mains. JP brought one up a month that apparently is going on right now throughout the village for the rest of the year. So I just want residents to be aware that they may have temporary gas outages in their areas, and owners should be advised to use alternate routes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Trustee Starr. Trustee Smith, any comments tonight? No. Okay. For mayor comments, I have a few things. First, in all this talk about budget and squeezing every dime, I think it's important that we also recognize that really at the end of the day, we're going to try to get this budget down as much as possible. And, it's easy to point it on salaries, but we really do have the best police, DPW office staff in the county. And I think that they should be commended. And our department heads, those that are in this room and across the village spectrum, have been nothing but hardworking and understanding during this difficult budget time. There are things that had originally been proposed that are not in that budget, that were taken out because of the financial realities that exist. But our department heads really do deserve a lot of credit for being amenable to those changes, because a lot of things that to them might have been considered essential were taken out of this budget. And I give them a lot of credit, and the men and women that work for them, for being able to work within the constraints and meet those challenges, as I know they'll meet those moving forward. Outside of that, yesterday I saw Ken Tashan's production of Paul Robeson, done by through the library. It was outstanding. Ken Tashan always does a great job. Shakespeare in the Park this year, I can't wait for it. It's going to be a great event. Last week, Trustee Stewart mentioned the website. It would be nice to upgrade that, and something that Joel has mentioned in the past. I spoke to Bonnie Majewski. She said that there is some capabilities there, but I guess she would need some more direction on what exactly we want. So if you have some ideas about specific sites that she can look at, we can forward to her. And I would recommend talk to Joel, because I know he has a lot of great ideas. Any recommendations you guys have, we can pass those along to Bonnie. Maybe find out what her proposal would be, because I'm sure her time will, require some money.
Even though she's very reasonable for, someone that does that stuff.
And last, I talked about this economic development things that Phil Dropkin proposed. The next part of that is going to be putting together committees appointed by the town, village, people to come up and do the grunt work with Phil Dropkin. And I've been asked by Phil and Doug Bloomfield to come up with some names of people in the village. I wanted to mention some names tonight of people that I thought would be great candidates. And if the board is okay with those people, I'd like to contact them. The first one is Mr. Torelli. He lives down the way here, some of you may know him. He works for Stewart Airport. He used to work with the Orange County Partnership. I think he'd be an excellent person to help guide the community on economic development. Jake Criney, he lives on Parkway. He builds hotels and a bunch of other things, does it throughout the state, very successful, understands economic development. And even though I don't know him very well, what I do know has impressed me, Ed, your neighbor, Tom Avery, who does construction management and things like that. And his wife actually, or maybe Tom himself, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to stereotype, they actually had one of the gardens in the garden tour last year. And they just did a phenomenal job. That's not really economic development, but just kind of cool little tidbit about them. So if it's okay with the rest of the board, I'd like to ask those three people if they'd be interested in representing the village on that task force.
Do we get to participate as well, I hope?
Oh yeah, well there's going to be a forum where we're going to be invited, our planning board, our ERB, our zoning board is going to be invited, really anyone. But Mr. Dropkin wants just a core of people that are not on the boards.
No, I understand. I spoke with him.
Okay. But yeah, I mean, the more participation, the better, I think, in his eyes. These are just so he has some people to kind of stand with him there. So, is the board amenable to that? We don't need a formal vote, but...
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Okay, with that, I'm going to open up for public comment. Susan?
Yes, under the items of business, number 1, sewer special assessment.
Yes.
To check out the possibility if that you can have people making monthly payments instead of quarterly payments and make it a heck of a lot easier on those who live on.
Interesting concept.
There are some communities that do that, so you just gotta, check that out because, currently I have my house up for sale and my realtor told me this is gonna make it a hell of a lot harder to sell. It's gonna make it harder to do businesses in there. It's really a bad time to have to be doing all this. I noticed that Marcia talked about asking about the sewer hookup for the county highway department. You know, that's great, we've got more money coming in. I'm glad that she brought up that it's out of district, so that means they're gonna pay the same amount people at Hamiltonian Park pay. That's the same amount, right?
Well, we have an intermunicipal agreement with the town of Goshen, that's based on sewer flow with those communities. But the out-of-district was used on the houses at the bottom of Fletcher Street, where it's the rates are higher. So at Hamiltonian Park and Arcadia, there's a separate agreement contract with the town.
So what is the percentage that we get from the county then for out-of-district? What do they pay?
It's roughly, it's different on the scale based on usage.
They'll probably be on the low end of usage, because it's,
They have quite a few people out there.
Yeah, so it's not gonna be a single family home.
Well, that's not, I mean, we have a rate schedule that's published rather than.
Right.
So we can provide.
Yeah, I wanna say it ranges different levels, maybe around 18%, but it's easily ascertained.
I could boil it,
The
right?
whole site is gonna be hooked.
You don't even have to boil for it, we'll have it tomorrow, it's on file.
But that whole area there is gonna be hooked up, right?
Yeah.
Because they have where the credit union is in that whole office building.
There's 4 buildings under it.
Right, so there are actually quite a few offices.
There are.
It's not just.
You've got
See, all right, that's exactly what the question that I was asking before.
What?
That was not made clear. That's exactly the question I was asking before in helping the county. I thought that I wanted there to be clarity on exactly what was being hooked up. And I think that's their office buildings there should.
Well, that's the DPW administrative.
I understand,
Okay.
but just that's what I was trying to.
Credit unions and.
Right.
So the fact that we're looking for other businesses, okay, it's a shame about Arden Hill, it really is.
Sure.
It really is. We've got the Gilly property, that can be targeted, maybe this group that you're getting together, I mean, hop on that right away, because we really need the tax rateable. This is one thing I think that this village should really entertain again. We took a big hit when we lost the jail from the sewer through the rate. The Village of Florida, they're not able to expand, they want to put senior housing over there, but they're not able to because they don't have the capacity.
Sure.
So that's really holding,
I agree 100%.
you know, and that's something that you could sit and talk to the county officials about. I mean, it's a good thing for me, for a lot of people it would be a good thing. I don't know what happens if it brings that assessment fee down, but will that, I mean, if you get more people to hook up and you build your tax base up, does that eventually reduce the price?
Absolutely. The way it's going to work is the serial bonds that we take out to finance this, just like the current serial bonds that they're financing the plant, those are going to be fixed costs in the next X amount of years. So if that's fixed and we have new people that come in, like Harness Phase 2, if they ever build those 60 units out there, that'll be, right now the way the assessment is being structured, it's taking all the village units, dividing that by the cost, and we need an extra $100 in revenue per unit to make that work. If we have 60 more units, we multiply 60 times 170, whatever that revenue is, divide that by the rest of the village units, there's probably about 3,500, and you would say, okay, that might have a change in this. But just to, add to that, we need to determine what happens in our I&I study. If we find out that we need to take out, spend $1 million fixing a sewer main, I don't think that's what's going to happen. But I don't want to stand here and say, if 60 houses come in, the rate will go down X. Because I can't promise anything. But mathematically, and the way I'm looking at it is the more users we have paying that assessment, or rates in general, the more revenue that's coming in. If we have a fixed cost, the more people paying it can only bring it down for everyone else.
And you realize that the rents in this area are going to go up. I mean, senior housing downtown, they're probably going to go up. And it's difficult. That's why I'm saying, if you can do something on a monthly basis, it makes it a lot easier for us home folks. Okay?
Thank you very much. Any other citizen comments? Neil?
Just a question, any success at unearthing that bill from TAM to the village for the restoration of water service to 159 West Main Street? I'd asked about it the last two or three meetings. I was told you would look into it and get back to me.
I was personally not looking into that. Does anyone here have any insight on that?
He mentioned it to me at the last meeting, and I mentioned it to you guys, but that was it.
I would imagine it would have been in one of the abstract vouchers, right? But
Everything goes through our system,
Yeah.
But I never encountered it, for a few months after the work was done.
I
And then I
can dig
stopped
around
looking.
this week and see what I come up with.
That'd be great, I'd really appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Ms. Fiona?
Yeah, first I want to thank the G for giving us permission for the GAW and the farmer's market and the pickup. And I have another letter for you, but it's personal. Back in last month, my mom had a medical emergency. Some of you were aware, because some of you were with us. And she didn't want to call because she didn't want to disturb me and Tom. So her friend called 911, and Officer Ellison, who's back in the corner over there, and Officer Giraldi showed up. And my mom is medically frail, and they helped calm her down. They were absolutely instrumental in maintaining her ability to not fall apart. So I just have a letter. I want to thank the village publicly on behalf of my family, thank you, Chief Watts, and on behalf of my family and my mom, because since my mom didn't want to call, when Officer Ellison found out that I was her daughter, he called me, and if he hadn't called, I don't know if the hospital would have called. My mom would have been at Horton by herself. So I've been very, very appreciative, again, as you've all mentioned, about the quality of the officers and the employees that we have. I'm just very grateful.
Thank you for those comments. To reiterate, that speaks volumes to what it really means to have our small-town police department that knows our residents, and they do an excellent job. Thank you very much.
My mom still talks about how Officer Ellison held her hand, so she wasn't.
Joel?
Yeah, I got a couple of going in reverse order here. Just on the New York State Electric and Gas, just point out to people that they dug up the street by Pete and myself last summer, and it took forever. It just went on all summer long. Dust generating, noise, and be prepared for the long haul. If they're doing the whole village, it's going to take a while.
I think they've been doing the whole village for about 8 years.
Yeah, it's not going to be a quick process.
It's not been, because my partner had it, and was in terrorist last year too, and he filed a complaint. And I won't get into it, a number of years ago, they trashed my lawn.
Your partner sued?
No, he threatened to. He did threaten to.
That's what lawyers do.
Well, sometimes they don't just threaten.
On the Phil Dropkin thing, am I correct that that joint meeting with the people from the county heavy hitters is this Wednesday, the 13th? With the town and the village boards?
I don't believe so.
I spoke to a member of the town board who thought that it was this Wednesday. And I was a little distressed because the ZBA is meeting on Wednesday.
I think we're still in the very preliminary stages with that.
I thought they had set a date.
I'm going to see if I can look through my emails and ascertain that to be sure.
Okay.
So don't wait around for me.
I would like to recommend to the members of the board something that I stumbled onto on the History Channel. Blew me away. It's a 2-hour program on crumbling infrastructure. The first deals with water and sewer. The second part deals with roads and inundation and flooding and levees. Bridges are in there someplace. It's just phenomenal. You sit there stunned. It's not a local problem. We all know this. It's a national problem. I saw it firsthand down in Jersey City, where you've got a major roadway there that's just crumbling, the Pulaski Skyway. I have an old 1934 copy of Fortune magazine where it was heralded as a miracle of modern engineering. Big photographic spread in Fortune by big name photographer. I can't remember who it is right now, but this was a miracle in '34, and today it's just you can pick up the crumbled material in your hand. It's all rotting away.
I have that information. No, you scared me. It's the rough draft of an invite says RSVP by April 27th.
Okay.
So maybe May 13th is what they were thinking of.
I'll have to.
No, there's plenty of time.
No,
as soon as I get that information, I'll put it out there. But no, it's we have some
I'm
time.
glad to hear it because I did want to get to that
Don't scare me.
meeting on Quick Check. So the History Channel, they rerun this stuff. Maybe you can DVR it in the middle of the night.
I'll tell you, Joel, it is on my DVR, I saw it last week.
Yeah,
I came across it.
Phenomenal program. Just
I haven't watched it yet, but it is on my DVR.
On the social media, I just wanted to mention, Nixle has not been used. It was a great first step, and basically we've had no information pumped out through Nixle. When we have these surcharges, it would be nice to have a notice to avoid certain streets, or that there's a problem, streets are closed, whatever. When the village hall is closed, it would be good to put it out there through some sort of a notification service. Should be on the website, should be through Facebook, all of that. I'm solidly behind that. In regard to that, I don't know how the board feels about it, or Kyle feels about it, but as you've set up a citizens advisory on budget, I'd love to see a citizens advisory on public relations and the use of the web. The last item I have on my list is on the Orange County garage hookup. Do we have any explanation as to why this went forward without any notification to the village and communication back from the village to the county? We know that they dug. We know that it was hooked up. Have they provided any explanations as to why this happened in the shadows?
What I would say is we have I don't have it with me, but there's a letter from Chuck Lee that he actually maps out the different points of contact when they first sent out her proposal and everything. So
right, but after the proposal, there was nothing. There was a seeker filing and then nothing. The board never got back, and they just went ahead and hooked up.
Well, I can show you what we have on it with me, but
so that's all you heard is his letter.
We have his letter. I've had conversations with him recently. Our engineers discussing things with him.
Right.
So we are where we are. Everything is safe.
Is there an explanation as to why they went ahead and hooked up? Without an approval from the board, without an agreement?
I can't comment on that because I don't know.
Without even a seeker filing, there's no permit, there's no seeker filing. I mean, they filed intent to take lead agency, but beyond that, there's nothing.
We are where we are. For the specifics, things like that, you have to ask the county. All I know is on the village end, we're doing everything that we need to do to make sure that everything is safe.
Along those lines, you're talking about billing them as an outside user. Where's the intergovernmental agreement?
That's something
I'm sure Mr. Donovan doesn't want you to go ahead and have an agreement with them that's not documented.
Well, now that we have the information from our engineers saying that everything will be safe and environmentally benign, then we can work towards something like that. Whether it's a board resolution, an IMA, there are options there.
Am I correct in the information I have at this point that whatever hookup they had has been disconnected and they are currently not connected to our sewer system?
Art, can you speak to that?
There's been work done, but not all of their facility is hooked up. I think a very small portion of the facility.
So they are connected?
There's some connection made. There's a pipe in the ground, but what buildings are connected, I'm not quite sure. I think there's only a small portion of the facility
right.
connected.
This all happened back in October of 2010. We know that there was a dig. I've got a photograph. I had heard that the oil separation process was disconnected in December after somebody submitted a FOIL as to why this was happening and what the story was.
I don't know. We'd have to talk to the county. We didn't have any involvement in that.
So without this is the point I'm trying to make here, and I find it very distressing. The county went ahead and hooked up to our system without this board ever saying that it was okay to do so. They initiated a seeker process and then promptly turned around and walked away from it and proceeded to hook up without going through the proper process. Now, I have no problem with their hooking up to our system. We want the additional customers. Everybody is right behind that. I am deeply troubled as to why this happened in the shadows. I think it raises questions that ought not to be part of our procedure and process.
Any connection that was made, my understanding, was made in the month of January, so we're talking about January until now for whatever the period of time is.
Nonetheless, it is not the process by which this is supposed to happen. And the state never approved it. There was
No,
never an application for a permit.
There's no approval necessary, but it's a service connection. It's the same as a house connection in effect. So there's no other approvals necessary other than...
Even though they're not within the village?
I said, other than the village.
The town doesn't have to be involved?
Not to my knowledge, no.
They're not providing this funding.
No, but the facility is within the town. There's no districts being created.
So I don't believe one needs to be created. It's an individual property.
Yeah, that's correct. You don't,
Okay. Nonetheless, I'm deeply troubled that this went ahead without any feedback from the village to the county, and without an agreement in place, and without an approval.
I don't know if there wasn't any feedback. Mr. Lee says that there were several conversations held over the last several years between different people, and he documents that in his letter.
Do we have those documents?
It were conversations, I said. Conversations held with several municipal officials.
I don't know what the law is on this. We've got 3 attorneys in the room, but that doesn't seem to me to pass the smell test.
I'm not saying that it did, and if it's catch up at this point in time, we're catching up since January. I don't think that they're connected in total. They're probably connected, I would estimate 10 to 20% of the facility. They still have a lot more work to do over there. So aside from the fact that there's been some regulatory work that has been done in the last several months, I'm not sure what else the issue is.
Everything on the village end right now is being done properly with thorough investigation, and all legal measures are being taken. That's all I can tell you. You can speak to the county for anything on there.
So we can assume that there will be no further connection or activity on the village pipes without the input from the board to the counny, without an approval on this.
As part of my review, the comment was that we want 48-hour notice prior to the installation of any other piping.
Thank you, Carl.
Mr. Rooney?
Yeah, just to follow up with Joel, mark the calendar, I'm following up with a question for Joel. Trustee Matthews actually raised the issue again, and this is disturbing from what I'm hearing, if Joel is correct, that this connection's goes back 4 months. And this was a budget hearing in the beginning part of the meeting tonight, and we're talking about revenue, and there's question, if we're losing 4 months of revenue coming in that we weren't billing them, and we don't have a set cap, I just hope that when everybody gets up for business tomorrow, they start working on playing catch-up on this subject matter, because it's a little bit concerning that we lost 4 months of revenue, and I don't know how we measure. I know how we measure our houses out in the 2 Hamiltonian, the other one. I don't know how the measure comes up.
If I might answer that.
Sure.
I spoke with the Commissioner of Public Works, and the county will pay retroactively from the time of their connection, so we just have to look at their water bill, and whatever the rate is, they will pay retroactively.
Thank you, Rob.
But we don't necessitate an additional agreement.
Well,
Or a cap, I think my concern is it's being expanded beyond. I wish they had done it differently, but I have no problem. I think it's fine for us to be helping out the county here. They're helping us on other things. But I think that I have concerns about it being expanded beyond that.
I don't think, they're just talking about the DPW garage facility, and that's it.
But we get to put that in writing in some fashion.
Right. Well, the way the process is supposed to work.
I know.
Okay, now, I hesitate to say that, but you have an application for a hookup by an out-of-district user.
Right.
We then go through an evaluation, which we're doing now, to make sure that hookup meets our requirements.
Right.
And once we confirm that, we can do one of 2 things. We can have an intermunicipal agreement, which will be very brief. It's going to say that they're going to pay X number of dollars, and we have certain requirements as imposed by our letter. We can translate that into an intermunicipal agreement. Either way, there's a resolution by the board which sets forth the parameters of what is entailed or what is encompassed by the hookup. And it's that facility located at that address. We can go by section, block, and lot, or street address.
Right.
But that's it. Any further hookup, any request for any further hookup, assuming that it's done according to Hoyle, will require further review by the board.
And that would just be, I think, very comfortable with the way that we're proceeding by following the rules.
So it's a good idea to follow the rules. Keep you out of trouble.
That's correct.
Exactly.
All right, ready, do you have a question?
Yes, in your opening remarks, you mentioned unfunded mandates. Do you have any examples?
Things like the state's structuring of, healthcare, whether it's, us contributing, to retirement system, things like that. The way the retirement system is structured by New York State, it really isn't beneficial, things like that. So,
I mean, is that something different that has been changed?
no, but that doesn't mean it doesn't have a negative impact.
Oh, absolutely.
I'd like to respond to that as well. I mean, that the DEC certainly has become more and more demanding on, and costly things that we have absolutely no choice nor funding available to us to put the bill for. Assuming that all things are done for the right reason, it still means that you have tremendous costs that are levied on top of our heads. Us meaning the taxpayers that we're grappling with, and those are significant unfunded mandates.
Well said.
When I was talking about the headings on the budget that you presented, in one of the items under 5-506 is expenditures for the last completed fiscal year. And the last completed fiscal year is 2010, not 2011, because 2011 is not complete. So therefore, the figures for 2010 should be on the budget.
I think we've already answered that our attorney's going to look into that, and, it's already been answered.
Okay.
Any other comments?
Getting back to the hookup out at the county garage, just a clarification, the county government center and the other county buildings in the village are not paying sewer fees?
Oh, they're paying.
They are?
Absolutely.
Okay. And so there's no differential between that
The difference
address
is
and the ones here in the village?
County building is inside the village, so it's in district user. County DPW is outside of the village, so it's not a district user.
Okay. And my other thought is, I know that there's been a history of MTBE contamination out there. MTBE, right?
Yes.
Yeah. What's the likelihood of, let's say, the sewer lines that are being installed out there, cracking or joints between two sewer lines, any kind of compromise? What's the likelihood of MTBE getting into the Village of Goshen wastewater sewer system?
Probably very, very little. I'll let my engineer answer that.
Very little.
But when you're dealing with something like that, very little could have an enormous impact, right?
Well, there's a couple of things. I think the county is going through a cleanup program for the MTBE situation, number one. So I would think that is going to be an improving situation as time goes on. However, that being said, I also, in my letter to Mr. Lee, asked or required that we be able to make spot checks on their sewer system during the course of time. So what I would like to do is basically check for what's known as infiltration inflow or groundwater getting into the sewer system, which we could observe on days that there's no occupancy in the building. For instance, on a Saturday, we could go there and see if there's any flow coming into their pump station. So we will be observing and monitoring that as time goes on. But with the new sewer system, generally, I&I problems or groundwater getting into a new sewer system is, as the mayor said, very unlikely.
All it takes is a crack, though, right?
Yeah, but with the pipes, my experience has been that's a very unlikely occurrence.
So now, will you be testing for, I'm sorry, MTBE? I always get them confused. MTBE?
Yes.
Okay. Will there be testing for it? Specifically for that? And if so, who would pay for it?
At the time we're at the sewage treatment plant, if we're seeing problems with MTBE at the plant, that would certainly be one of the first places we would look. So we would back up from there.
And so now, am I correct that this has been detected not only in the groundwater but on surface water locations as well?
I don't know. I'm not aware of what the situation is there.
And is the Village of Goshen wastewater treatment facility designed to address that issue if it gets introduced into the system? Or will that just get discharged back or out into the Rio Grande?
There is a treatment process that goes on at the plant. I don't know specifically how it would handle low levels of MTBE. I can find out for you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's all. Thank you very much.
If I can just clarify on that, the concern to the public there is that any discharge into the Rio, effluent from the sewer plant, feeds to the Wallkill just a couple of miles above where our CRV wells are. And the CRV wells are on a sand and gravel aquifer, so any contamination going into the Wallkill
It's not just the public who's concerned.
It is possibly, we're just pointing ourselves.
Make sure everything's safe.
Right. And something of which I was recently made aware with regard to the treatment is that the way in which this is treated is with a peroxide type chemical injection, which essentially is supposed to oxidize and reduce this down to a non-toxic form, the MTBE. However, one of the side effects of this is that it causes the MTBE to migrate. And there was a recent spill out there, I know Roddy's aware of it, that they recently found a concentration, as they were digging, the soil was coming up smelling of petroleum product. So the situation there, which has been going on now for a decade, is not anywhere near being over, and it's not anywhere near being of no concern.
However, at the same time, our engineer has done investigations working with the county DPW to determine that even though they have their set of issues, those aren't going to have any negative impact on our plant processes.
One would hope.
I would not like the public to be worried about that, because when you talk about the two that tie together, it might create a pairing that's not accurate. So I want to be clear.
Certainly, but it is something of which to be concerned.
Yes, we can't ignore any issues, but that is something that our professionals have determined is extremely unlikely, and they're going to monitor in case anything did happen. Okay. With that, we need to move into executive session to discuss our pending litigation with the town of Goshen. We will not be doing any business of this after we come out of executive session. So I'd like for a motion to move into executive session. Since the mayor's office is still under construction, we're going to need to use this room. So I'm going to ask for a 5-minute break to get all non-village board members and village officials to clear out this. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming. All right, thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.